Blog Talk Radio.
Here we go with the main event of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen in attendance, boxing fans joining us around the world. It's time for the Matthew Ball we've been waiting for. Finally, it is showtime.
Here, man, we dedicate our life to this sport. We do thousands of sit-ups in camp. We run hundreds of miles, for the ones that take it serious. And we just dedicate ourselves fully to our craft, man. We watch tape. We have attitude, we rooting, and we go into that fight just to land on the line.
Hey, what up, boxing fans? This is the Rope-A-Dope Radio Podcast. I am your host, Chris Carlson. We are live on a Tuesday afternoon. And welcome back to the show. I know these Tuesday afternoons are not necessarily lining up with everybody that likes to listen to it live. I apologize, but, the vast majority of the listens come through archive anyway. And you can still listen to it in the browser on your phone as if it's live. Okay, I'm being a dick. I'm sorry. But more people are starting to catch up to it a little bit. It just kind of fits. Plus, to be honest, there's a Game 7 tonight. Who the hell is going to be listening to it live? You probably wouldn't even be calling it. Am I right? No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, welcome back. Like I said, we have a lot to talk about. Did I actually say that before? I said, like I said. But anyway, I don't think I did. This is a weird start to the show, but that'll be kind of, that's a normal thing to the show. At least the mic didn't give out randomly or the switchboard didn't go out or something, that can randomly happen throughout the year. I'm rambling. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about for the show, which is starting to show clearly with a very competitive fight in the ring, Ramirez and Postol on ESPN+. One of the scorecards I think are pretty controversial, 8 rounds to 4. I didn't see 8 rounds to 4 for Ramirez, but I didn't see 8 rounds to 4 for Postol either. You know what I mean? We're going to talk about that. We're going to break that down round by round. Not a huge surprise, really, that it was a competitive fight. I was looking at that. Remember, I mentioned that that underdog number. I mean, I saw it at like plus 475 and even higher. I think it got to like 600 something by the time it was, by the time the bell rang. So, not a huge surprise. We will talk about some of the undercard stuff. Gabriel and Raymond were in competitive fights. Elvis Rodriguez scored a knockout. We'll talk a little bit about the Fox card, not really the main event, of course. Besides giving the opponent some credit for lasting and being tough or whatever, but we knew it was going to be a mismatch. However, we got an upset. The replacement for Caleb Truax, who came down with some sickness down the stretch, unfortunately, of the week. This Hernandez comes up and upsets Angulo. And also there were a variety of undercard fights that actually turned out to be pretty good on the Fox and FS1 stuff. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Daniel Du Bois was in a pretty easy walkthrough. We'll talk about the recap from last weekend. We'll look forward to some fights that we got on the schedule this week, whether it's Herring Aquendo, whether it's Ugas Ramos. Either of those could turn out to be competitive or just entertaining. That's really what I'm hoping for. We will talk a little bit of news. Supposedly Canelo has, they've healed the wounds enough with him, I guess, going over DAZN to the lawyers of the owner of everything when it comes to DAZN, especially DAZN USA, the guy that's funding a lot of it, or has. Now he's looking for some help, which makes sense. I guess Canelo, this is good news. I mean, it really sucks that, this is 2 Mexican Independence weekends in a row that he missed. But, hey, Canelo is in discussions with Callium Smith and Billy Joe Saunders for November. We'll see how that goes. We do have some information on the Brook offer for a Terrence Crawford fight. And something that I didn't totally know, but I suppose as the years go by, he's only fought a couple of times since 2017 and that Spence fight. I say that because I guess he's a free agent. I guess I didn't even really think about that. But looking at the offer number, is it a real offer or just a press run by Bob Arum and Top Rank to make it sound like they really wanted to make this fight? They tried to make the Pacquiao fight. They tried to make the Kell Brook fight, but we're going to have to settle on this one because of, the coronavirus and stuff like that, which I'm not saying is a horrible excuse. It's not like you could do there's really no pay-per-view market right now here, and there's really no room for it, more than likely, in the UK either for the fall and early winter. So we're going to look at that a little bit and kind of break that down. Broner had a violation that got him a little jail stint. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about a variety of other fight news and of course boxing Twitter. There is a really, and I'll say it kind of strangely, an interesting boxing Twitter segment. It's always interesting. It's always funny or whatever. But there's some tweets, especially one tweet that'll just be like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Are you just trying to get likes?" But anyway, before we get into this, if this is your first time listening to the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast, welcome. It streams live right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. However, if you don't, if you want to listen to it someplace else, you don't have to go to Blog Talk and download the show or listen to the browser right there. You can find the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Stitcher, really all across the board. We're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network, which can be found everywhere, including Spotify. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. It's boxing, it's football, it's basketball, it's baseball, it's everything in between. And the Rope-A-Dope Radio is boxing and football and basketball as well, just so you know. One more thing, if you're thinking about cutting the cord or you're not quite happy, I got something for you. I use it myself. It's called AT&T TV Now. It's live streaming cable. Now, there is a 7-day free trial if you're kind of reluctant. There's no annual contract. Once you sign up, the plans start as low as $55 a month. You can stream it anywhere. They have the cloud DVR as well. And right now, if you sign up, there's a 30-day free trial of HBO Max. And there's a little extra here. If you go for the AT&T TV Now Max package, that already includes HBO Max, plus a free month of Showtime, which is regularly $11 a month, boxing fans, just a heads up. AT&T TV Now, like I said, live streaming cable. Okay, let me get a little sip of some agua. So this Jose Ramirez-Victor Postol fight was tight. Did it turn out to be a great fight? No, it didn't. But it was very competitive. And at a lot of different levels, whether it's prospect against prospect against vet, crossroads fights with vets, which it seems like the landscape of boxing has a ton of those, which is good. The high-level stuff. My point is, I'll take competitive fight every day of the week and twice on Sundays. And I did not call some sort of upset here because it didn't happen anyway. But I did think that folks were undervaluing Postol. And to an extent, maybe overvaluing Ramirez, especially off his last performance, was phenomenal. But if you now look at the last 2 out of the 3 fights, they've been some close-ass fights. That Zapata fight from last year as well. Now, some people can go overboard. Of course, some PBC fanboys, because Postol's with the PBC, are scoring it like 9-3. For Postol, that's not true. Now, on the other side, though, people protected Ramirez or thought he won. No big deal, whichever the case may be. Some people are like, oh, it was just a jab, that's it. Well, no, he got hit with more than just a jab. And let's be honest, Ramirez missed a fair amount of his big power shots at times. And sometimes he'd throw a punch and Postol would be already out the back door. So let's talk a little bit about it. It was a close first round, close couple of rounds, right? There were swing rounds, which you always have to put in, to kind of reference it. Kind of like voting polls, right? There's the presidential poll right now. There's a 5% error. When you start to have swing rounds, you can say, well, that could have went either way. 7-5 draw, 7-5. That's kind of what I felt about this fight. I did give Postol, besides some kind of quick shoe shine, it was just a nice jab. Ramirez, he did land late, but I don't know if it was enough. The second round, I gave Ramirez the body work midway. He also landed the best punch of the round. It was a right hand. So that kind of closed the round and gave him it, but the jab and some movement was what Postol was given. And in the third round, he did, jab more, of course. It was a close round. Once again, a few hooks and a right hand he threw in there, minorly. Fourth round, this is up in the air, dude. It felt like Ramirez got off to a good start. Postol had some late lands. It was a slow round. The fourth could have went either way. Whether you gave it to Ramirez or Postol, whatever. Fifth round, I did give to Ramirez. It was a competitive round, but a few solid jabs and a nice body shot or two basically did more than just the jabs. My thing is, I loved Andre Ward as a fighter, but as a broadcaster, I've always liked him. And for him to have Ramirez up 4-1 after 5, because it could be 3-2 either way. It could be 2-2-1. I know that's sacrilegious to some people, but to have him up 4-1, he's not doing anything. I just didn't see that. I think you at least got to give Postol 2 rounds, so 3-2, whatever the case may be. But like I said, the fifth round, I felt Ramirez definitely got, and this is where Ramirez, for me, took over a portion of the fight, and this is probably why he can make the argument. Well, he can make the argument that he won because he won. But, this is where you can make the argument for Ramirez, because the fifth, sixth, and seventh, and eighth, all 4 rounds I gave to Ramirez. Postol at this point was on the move too much. There's moving, there's, on the outside and all that, and then there is a 10 speed going downhill, and at times he was doing that. So when you get to the, to the sixth round, it could be, maybe some people had it 3-2 for Postol, then you had it 3-3, whatever it is. But I had it right around 3-3 at the halfway mark. But like I said, I gave Ramirez the 7th, 8th, or the 6th, 7th, 8th, including the 5th. So that's 4 in a row. Excuse me. If you look at the 7th round, in the 6th round, those short right hands and left hooks started, finding a home. One of the left hooks, I believe, kind of buzzed Postol a little bit, or at least knocked him off balance. 60 seconds into the 8th round, Ramirez repeatedly landed that left hand. Postol started finally jabbing with, meaningful jabs, and a lot, plenty of them. And it did feel like Ramirez started walking into punches. I'm talking about the 9th round. I did give Postol the 9th round. But then Ramirez won the 10th round for me. He got off, he didn't get off to a good start. Postol did. But once again, he was on the move way too much at that point. And whereas Ramirez, jab right hand, he just closed better, landed the better shot. So you're looking at it, and I got it, whatever, 5-3 after 8 is what I had on my scorecard. But yeah, after 8 I had 5-3 and then split. So, but I did give Postol the 11th and 12th. Ramirez landed some nice left hooks early, but the jab and right hand, several of them, won it for me. Postol in the 12th round landed a really nice left and a right in exchanges. He kind of followed up with the right hand and another right hand. Ramirez kind of had some up jabs and right hands, went to the body and all that, had a steady jab. I gave Postol that round. It was a close round. Like I said, there's 2 or 3 swing rounds. So 6-6, 7-5, either way. If I had to go 7-5, probably would go Ramirez just barely. It's really tough. 114, 114, 115, 113, and then 116, 112. I wasn't a big fan of. I didn't see either guy, like I said, win 8 rounds. I just didn't see it. Ramirez landed 156 to 147. But Postol, because of that jab, was busier, 668 to 556. The body work overall for Ramirez, 48 to 19. Really close fight. Very close fight. And that's, I talked about how I think this is going to be a closer fight. I didn't call for the upset. I'm not going to act like I did. But I did call for a much tighter fight. And, we could talk about layoffs. Well, I believe Postol was laid off longer. The broadcast, like normal A-side broadcast, right? They did start to make a combination of reasons and excuses, right, for Ramirez. But if there were some legitimate reasons, Postol would have those same reasons. So, styles make fights, and Postol with that long jab, the fairly sturdy defense, some decent movement. It's just a tough style. Like I said, he missed too much to sit there and say he won 8 rounds or he was controlling the action. But then again, Postol, although his jab can be very meaningful, very solid, it's still, he always needed, or not always, but mostly in these big fights, needed to just throw more right hands. Needed to not even take a lot more risk, but just something. It's not like you can't throw a nice little jab, left hook and then pivot out of there. So if people had it 7-5 Postol, I'm cool. I was okay with a draw or a 6-5-1 Ramirez, to be honest with you. That's what my scorecard was. But, I basically had it right around a draw. It could have went either way. So, where's that leave Ramirez and Postol? Well, Postol, he is with the PBC, so he does have some fights he could build back a little bit and try to get a big fight. With Ramirez, obviously, we say obviously. Obviously, they want Josh Taylor to get by his next fight in about a month, not even, and not get injured so they can have this fight, whether it's in December or whether it's, early next year, whatever it is, with Taylor and Ramirez, but not so fast. Not so fast. And I got to admit, I kind of forgot about this double mandatory situation. But you know who didn't forget? Our guy, Jake Donovan. He didn't forget. And like I said, I forgot he had, a double there was a mandatory situation there. And I just spaced it. I guess, with the layoff here and the lockdown and just boxing shut down for a while, I guess I just forgot. But as it says right here, the mandatory title fight ordered by the WBA. This is Jack Donovan. Oh, that's who it was, Jack. That's what I'm thinking, the dude from the UK, Catterall. So basically, staying true to its word, the World Boxing Organization has ordered Ramirez, the WBC, WBO, to honor a mandatory title defense obligation. The ruling comes less than 48 hours, blah, blah, blah. Please be advised, July 28th. Please be advised that on Tuesday, July 28th, 2020, this committee granted sanction approval of that fight of Victor Postol and Ramirez, with the provision that the winner must face the Mando within 120 days. So, and like I said, I kind of forgot about that. But this is obviously a true statement. So it's going to take some step-aside money to get this done. Maybe it'll take a interim belt to get this done. That's how it goes. So it says he was retroactively, which is such a sanctioning belt thing too, named WBO mandatory last January, 3 months after outpointing O'Hara Davies. Now step-aside money is a little bit harder at this point in time, just because you don't have gate money and that type of thing. I don't know what it would do on pay-per-view in the UK, but it damn sure wouldn't do a whole lot here. Just because, not a lot of people know Taylor over here. Ramirez is starting to build a name for himself outside of his hometown and stuff, or that area. But, whether you think he could sell on pay-per-view or not, that's not – the fact is the fall's already pay-per-viewed up. If they didn't put Lomachenko, and Teofimo Lopez on pay-per-view because of the schedule, well, then we know that that isn't going to be. So it'll take some step-aside money. How much? That's a good question. That is a good question. However, Ramirez has a pretty healthy guarantee, and they could go the purse bid route. And so Top Rank would have, I don't really care. I'd be fine if he dropped the WBO. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it and be like, oh, now they can't. It's still lineal. It's still a lineal title for me. But, some people thought Taylor lost to Prograis. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. I understand that was a tight fight. But, yeah, that's where we're at. As far as the undercard goes, Barboza Jr. Pretty much took care of business. He was landing a lot of jabs and uppercuts early. Sometimes his opponent, Lewis, would just stand in front too damn much and just get hit. Barboza was working the body. Mostly jabs and right hands. He did get a point deducted, a low blow point deducted. But jabs, uppercuts, jabs, right hands. Pretty slow pace. Barboza did get it done. You got to give him credit for that. 225 to 135. He was busier. That's the lands. 690 to 577, 33%, which is always a damn good percentage at more body shots too. So he looked pretty good, as did Elvis Rodriguez too. He pretty much handled what he had to handle in that fight, or in his fight, I should say. Also, the Murtala, the brothers Raymond and Gabriel, they both got knocked down early in their fights. Gabriel was like a rabbit punch on him. He ended up, getting up and winning the fight. Now, Valenzuela against Raymond, this was a pretty interesting fight here. There was a right hand that he landed. Raymond knocked down Valenzuela, but Valenzuela got up with a left hook that kind of stumbled and turned into a knockdown. And it was kind of behind the head. I don't know if it was fully a rabbit punch, but it seemed like it was close. So him and his brother kind of went through the same thing a little bit early. But Raymond really turned up the heat, especially the body attack. Ton of right hands. And it was the ref step in 7th round, I believe. So, all in all, I thought the entertainment value wasn't just obviously entertainment value and just competitive fight on paper and especially in the ring. in the main event. But, Elvin Rodriguez, pretty easy KO, right? But we had some competitive stuff. Sometimes some of the undercard stuff that we see on TV and on streams, whatever you want to say, on DAZN, ESPN Plus, or whatever, sometimes it can be a little too heavy with the showcases. It does seem like just because there's only like 5 or 6 fights scheduled now, since coronavirus took over, that we don't see the 12 and 16 fight cards right now. So I thought it was a pretty good card, top to bottom overall. Obviously, the top being the most interesting, but like I said, Gabriel pretty much dominated. The brothers there, Raymond, did too after that, but it wasn't like they were easy fights. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they were easy fights at all. So that about wraps that up. That card anyway. Let's see here, actually. So, and then Daniel Dubois, he destroyed his, walk-through opponent, and now a fight with Joe Joyce is next. It's supposed to happen sometime in October, but they were talking about fans in the UK now. Like some other countries, we are starting to see fans being allowed into the buildings. A lot of them have been outdoor stuff, though, too, I'll say. But, and the way Eddie Hearn has talked that, by the time September kicks in, a really strange thing, he almost said that there's not really going to be the same testing, which is like, are you sure? Now, I know it's different over there than it is here especially in some areas here, but he made it sound like there's going to be, people in the stands. It's just a matter of, how many. I think he talked about Joshua's next fight might be 25%. I don't know. We'll talk a little bit about that. That'll be the Joshua. Actually, Joshua has a date now, a tentative date. That'll be in the segment where we talk about some current fight news and, boxing Twitter segment kind of all mixed up together in there. Now, as far as the main event on Fox, just breaking down Josh Taylor and Ramirez, the triangle effect where he beat him or he had a tight fight with him, so that means that he's going to beat him or have a tight fight. Styles make fights. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And that's also the reason why, the outcome that we got, Ramirez won, but it was a close fight, right? Like I said, Prograis, Taylor was a close fight. And, I had it like 8-4, Taylor Postol a little while back. So there's close fights here. Zapata Ramirez, close fight. It just shows you 140 is still up for debate, right? In style, like it kind of comes down to the style. But another reason why this kind of makes me feel good about a decision of not just giving Josh Taylor or Ramirez for that matter, but a lot of people after this fight with Prograis put Josh Taylor in the top 10 pound for pound. And I was, not that I'm totally against it, but just look at how Terrence Crawford dealt with Postol. And look at how he dealt with a lot of 140-pounders. And that's why it got so interesting, 140, the last couple of years. We had a tournament. We had some really good fights because Crawford left the division. And and I know some Crawford fans are not going to like that. And they didn't like that back then where I said, hey, 140 is wide open. It's a rising division because now we know there's not one dominant guy, which I'm giving actually credit to Terrence Crawford because he was clearly winning. I mean, look what he did to Postol. That first round, he lost, and then he flashed an outside style and never looked back. He has more than one way to win. And speaking of that Ramirez-Taylor, just to kind of go back to it and clean this up, Taylor does have, more than one way to win. And so that's an advantage that has me lean into him barely. But honestly, it's one of those back to the drawing boards and really break down this fight in my head and on paper because to me it's still a 50-50 fight. and it's really easy to knee-jerk something. I mean, let's not forget, I like Prograis, but he doesn't have all these great wins, and I scored that basically like a 6-6, very close to what this fight was. So, anyway, let's go. Well, as far as the main event, like I said, we knew what we were getting in the main event with Arislandi Lara and Vendetti. But Vendetti, I got to give credit a little bit because he did show some kind of inside ability. He got there a very kind of weird way, but he did manage to land these short shots. Lara he clearly didn't look sharp along the layoff. And last year, so it's been about a year, right, since that Canelo's brothers fight. What, he only get 2 rounds in that too? 3 rounds tops? I can't remember. Was it a second round knockout? So that doesn't surprise me. Outlanded him 162-88. Lara wasn't looking to move a whole lot, which helped Vendetti. Vendetti wasn't able to get like 2 and 3 shots landed, but he was game. I guess, in the last 2, the Formella and Vendetti, they were more game than we thought. A lot of people thought these dudes would just get iced. So they weren't completely just horrible mismatches, but they were still, showcase fights all the way. Stay busy, showcase, yada, yada, yada. However, we always say when you have an established fighter, whether he's a name or not, in a stay busy fight in the main event, you got to put something on the undercard. And I thought they did a pretty good job at that. Now, one of the fights on the undercard was, actually, let's go to the, one of the best fights in more recognizable names to some people. Alfredo Angulo was supposed to fight hometown kid, Caleb Truex. He's not a kid. I'm just older than him, so I can call him that. Just kidding. Truex. Please don't punch me. No, Truex is a nice guy. Even if you're a dick to him online, which I see people sometimes are, he's pretty laid back. Anyway, he did come down with dehydration, and he just wasn't feeling up to it at all. He really, the last week, I guess, came down with some, he was sick, he was dehydrated, and it's just been a tough run for him, man. I feel really bad for him. Last April or whatever it was, got a cut like in the second round, tried to come back, later in the summer, ended up hurting, what was it, his ankle, that ligament? It's just been a rough one. I feel for him, man. That's got to suck. So I hope you feel better, man, and it just sucks. But I'll say this for Vladimir Hernandez, he stepped in, and he did his thing. And once again, the PBC, whether it's Fox or Showtime, I know a lot of people don't always like to get him credit, right? But I do when credit's due. I give everybody credit. When criticism is needed, that's what you get. The backup opponent that we heard about, that they're going to have these guys ready to fight, that these guys know they got to go through a training camp, they're getting tested, all that stuff. The fact that they brought in Hernandez, a quality enough replacement to pull up the upset, you got to love it. You got to love it because this is a fun fight. Now, it wasn't some sort of high-level fight, but, for a casual fan watching or even us, hardcores, this is a fun fight, though. And like I said, both of them were slow. So it's not like you felt bad for Angulo and that's it. Don't get me wrong, Angulo shouldn't fight many more times. And now this probably, this basically says you're done, dude. You had your chance. You pulled off that Quillen upset. That was awesome. You were trying to pull another upset by Truex, and you ended up getting upset yourself. But Hernandez came out actually the aggressor on Angulo, which not many people can say that. He landed a huge left hand in the second round. I remember that. Really landed some big shots. But it was back and forth. But still, the first 3 rounds for me were all Hernandez. Then Angulo started getting into the fight 4th and 5th round. He started out working him, pressing him. You can start to see Hernandez slowing down a little bit. And the last chunk of the round, Angulo was working pretty hard. Now, the sixth round, Hernandez may have done enough early and mid landing combinations, short hooks to the body, in the head, by Angulo to close out the round. Could have stolen it. I don't know. I did give the seventh because of the jabs and hooks to the bodies to Angulo. I thought the hooks and uppercuts were enough because he actually had him on the ropes there for a second in the eighth round. Hernandez, though, in a back and forth round, I thought Hernandez won the ninth in the 10th. Hernandez landed in the 10th round, an uppercut and a two-punch combo. And there was like a cut in that round, too, I thought. But Angulo came back and landed a couple of big right hands with like, I think, 40 seconds left, I wrote down. So it was a competitive fight. It was fun. It was entertaining. Yeah, these dudes were slow. It wasn't like some kind of high-level contest, but I didn't expect that. You know what I mean? Going in, and I didn't know what we were going to get out of Hernandez, to be honest with you, Vladimir Hernandez. So that was a good surprise off of a fight that looked like it was pretty much lined up to be competitive with Truax and Angulo. So like I said, credit to BBC for getting quality opponents ready for something like this. Now, I don't know if you can do that, when the coronavirus isn't as, when we can have crowds and all that. I don't know if when you get to 12 and 14 fights, and I don't know if you can keep doing that because you are paying these guys, you know what I mean? So I'm not sure but right now it was needed, and, it was dope. I got to say that really helped because it wasn't. Then you didn't have to just be like, oh, you're screwed. Oh, no, forget it. It's done. There's nothing to watch in this fight. Angulo's not even going to fight. And then they just bumped something up. Now, luckily, they could have actually bumped one of these FS1 cards or the opener, around two. Let's talk about some of these undercard fights. Ruiz and Pauldo. On paper, it seemed like it was more of a close matchup, but I think Pauldo clearly won the fight. I gave him first 2 out of 3 rounds, a couple of nice right hands, but he led with the jab. There was some early exchanges, though, in this fight, and throughout to an extent, short uppercuts, especially to the body, just body shots, too, by Ruiz. But Pauldo was really, the busier one. The fourth round, the fight slowed down a little bit. Pauldo was busier. 6 through 8, there was a little more action, a little bit more two-way stuff. Ruiz focused in on that body work, head and up. He had some good head and upper body movement that gave Pauldo a little problem when landing combinations. But overall, Pauldo won the fight. I had it 7-1 or 6-2, something like that. 80-72, 79-73. I think were the other 2 scorecards. 139-89 were the punch stats. So good win by Pauldo. We'll see where he goes. Brian Mendoza won a fight against Lamagna, and that was a good fight. This was an interesting fight. Style matchup, no doubt about it. Lamagna doing a lot of stuff on the outside. Sometimes effective, sometimes flashy and not as effective. Smiling a lot, hot dogging, but I gave him the first 2 rounds, Lamagna. He was just doing like a tad bit better of work. Mendoza had some success, some pressure, but not much. But I did think that he started to take the fight over minorly in the 3rd round, started landing to the body, started throwing uppercuts, started just landing in combination, did Mendoza. And so I gave him the 3rd and the 4th round, a flush left hook. I think it cut. I think there was a cut on his eye off of that. But, lead right hands and left hooks for Lamagna, some movement. The 5th round could have went either way, in my opinion. Both were landing hard right hands. I don't know who won that one. It seemed like Mendoza landed fewer, harder shots, but then Lamagna kind of got on his dipping in and out, around in a circle type thing, landing a few decent shots here and there, boxing in spots, kind of throwing combinations in spots. So I gave him the 6th and 7th, but then I gave Mendoza the rest of the rounds, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Body shots and flush right crosses. And they were trading blows on and off, just, not enough in my opinion. The pressure added up, and he won the fight, but it was close. I mean, the busy work as far as like pity pat stuff at times was Lamagna. I mean, he landed more punches. Let me see, 189 to 171. He threw more, 704 to 539. But Mendoza, 32% to 27%. And, to me, he just won like 5-4 to 1. Could have been a draw in this one. I really would have been fine with the draw. 2 scorecards had at 92-98. That was a head scratcher. I think the other one was 96-94, which 6-4. That makes sense to me for Mendoza, but Mendoza did get the win. I just was a little surprised, at that part. It was like, oh, really? So you had him winning like that? Okay, I didn't see that part. So what else we got? Is that it? Do we get all of them? I feel like isn't there one more? Huh. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Oh, no, there was. Yeah, there was. What am I talking about? The opener. And this was a good fight. Martinez and Akron. Or, what is it? Arcon. Akron. Arcon. I totally wrote that down wrong now that I'm looking at it. Sometimes I have chickens. Well, not sometimes. I normally have chicken scratch, but if I spell it wrong, then I'm in some trouble. Anyway, Martinez, for me, won the first couple of rounds. Obviously, he landed like a, what was it? I mean, Arcon actually landed a couple of nice shots in the second round, but it was in an exchange. It was literally like the last second of the round. It's kind of funny how that worked out because later that did the same thing, but Martinez in an exchange landed a left hook and then kind of, I think he scraped him with the right hand, but definitely a left hook. And I'll tell you what, Arcon went down hard, dude. I think it was like back-to-back exchanges, but there was a left hook. I think it was 2 left hooks in a row, and the second one dropped Ruiz Arcon. I mean, and this, by the way, it was 8-0 against 10-0, so it's like kind of had that showbox feel, which I like to open up a broadcast. But then I thought Arcon, I mean, God, what the hell? I gave him the next 3 rounds. The 5th, close, but the jabs, and he started doing this little step back and land or step back and play defense, which I thought that was pretty good. You had Martinez more on the move, but he wasn't landing as much. And he was just starting to separate. It was finally like the 6th round was the first round where you're like, besides that knockdown, that he started really separating himself, in my opinion. Most of them were jabs and whatnot, but Arcon looked pretty good there. The jab, left hooks. Martinez did manage in the 7th round to stumble Arcon with the right hand. But, he closed off. He was off balance a little bit, too. That may have played into it. Arcon, he still closed better. They were both landing really nice left hooks late. Good action fight here, and it's not like they landed a million shots or anything, but it seemed like most of the shots they landed when it was a power punch landed really hard. Case in point, slower round in the 8th. Not a lot of it was kind of like, hey, guys, is somebody going to try to win this fight? And sure enough, in the last second or so, a short left hand and like a scraping right hand. That's what I meant by that. Arcon knocked him down with literally like 2 or 3 seconds left. And that gave him the draw. Now, I had it about 4-4, or if I had to pick a winner, I would pick Arcon, or Akron, I'll call it. 5-3, but I could see 4-4. That's okay. 76-73, I'd have been okay with, but 76-74, two cards, and then 75-75. Both the cards were one for, of course, Martinez, one for Arcon. So it was a draw, and I was okay with that. That's no big deal. That works. I did kind of think that Arcon won the fight 5-3, but at least neither guy took a loss. So entertaining though, definitely entertaining fight. So I think that about wraps it up now, right? I believe so. All right. So yeah, that basically wraps it up. Anyway, I really, enjoyed those fights, in general. They had a lot, prospect, mid-level, all that good stuff that we talk about. And so, yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought both cards from top to bottom, when I say top, obviously, on the Fox one, that's a little different, right? But to me, I enjoyed these cards. There was some fun cards, in my opinion. I thought it was just a good day of boxing. That's what it seemed like to me. What else? Oh, Tim Tszyu. And by the way, it probably was the same dude who called in, or maybe a little pack of them that kind of come at me once in a while. I made like a stupid joke about how do you say his name, because I actually kind of forgot that it was Tim. Did I say Timmy? I kind of, because I was calling him Costa Zoo as a joke, like because I couldn't, for a half a second I spaced that it was Tim, but then when I was like, it's Tim, and I kind of was, it was a failed attempt at a dumb joke that I kind of got confused at randomly, or somebody got confused that I didn't know that, Zoo was his last name. Costa Zoo, this is Tim Tszyu. I almost called him Tim Tszyu with the T. But I was just joking. It was just a joke. But anyway, he handled Jeff Horn. I know that was a while back now, pretty early in the morning and whatnot, but he handled him. He was pretty impressive. He looked good. There's really no way around it. He made a statement. He dominated Horn. He's pretty young. He's like mid-20s, right? I think he's like 16-0 now. So I liked what I saw him. He outworked him. He definitely, at times, he was really, imposing his will on him. But at times, he was able to get out of the way of punches. He pivoted really well. There was like it wasn't the first knockdown. It could have been like a push, right? I think it was ruled a knockdown, but it was a push, I thought. There was a nice left hook to the body that hurt Horn in the 6th round. And then he kind of went, another left hook, and he ended up, it was a knockdown. Well, I mean, it was a knockdown because I think he went to a knee. Ended up finishing him. He looked good. Tim Tszyu seems like a really good fighter. I don't want to step him up, super high at 54, but he's got some potential, that's for sure. He looked good. Like I said, that pressure, unable to slip a punch here and there. That's kind of what I liked about him. He's very active. Like I said, he outworked him. By the way, in that Angulo Hernandez fight, new 168-pound division record for CompuBox. 2,137 combined. So Angulo landed 351 to Hernandez 306. And like I said, I actually had it a tighter fight. I didn't think it was a clean win by Hernandez. That kind of, I was kind of like, really? They both landed 31%, but Angulo threw 1,134, and Hernandez threw 1,000. So they both over 2,000, almost, over 2,100. So I forgot to mention that, but yeah, I think that about wraps it up. as far as recap goes. Oops. I'm getting a couple of messages here. Oh, hey, it's our friends again. What do you know? Maybe I should have, what I should have done? I should have waited on the final Fox rating with the peak number before I did the show, right? Because that's what boxing is all about. Doing a podcast just to talk about ratings. Because remember last week, I got a message saying I'm ducking the ratings, and then I talked about them, and some dude called in and didn't have much to say. He just, said some kind of whatever, something that he gave me a suggestion. Whatever, it is what it is. But we'll talk a little bit about them, but I'm not going to get into them too much here, okay? We'll talk about it later in the show. It's not something I'm ducking. We don't have the official numbers just yet as far as the peak number, just like last week. Right now, I think it averaged 832 fully. Last week, it was 810. But we'll talk about that, okay? Because, like I said, the peak number's not out. I'm gonna cover what I can cover on it. You know what I mean? But sometimes it's funny. Anyway, this weekend though, we do have some fights this weekend. Herring and Acuedo. For what was this, the third time or just the second time? I feel like this is the third time they tried to make this fight. Herring's been trying to get this fight out of the way so he can fight Carl Frampton next, and Carl Frampton didn't look great, but he got the fight out of the way. This could be interesting. I'm interested to see if Jamal can have some separation in this fight and kind of look like the champ at 134 that he is. Because remember, he won that belt from, Ito as an underdog. And it wasn't like just a pick'em underdog. It was like, he was a clear underdog. Now, since then, he did have a fight last, I think it was fall, November, December, against Lamont Roach. He won by unanimous decision. Acuedo, he actually lost to Roach not long ago. Did manage to get a fight in with Charles Huerta, a veteran. Lost to Cuellar a while back. Doesn't really have too many quality. Lost to Abner Mares, Wilfredo Vasquez. Doesn't really have a great name on his record. Juan Manuel Lopez. Obviously, you can see he's fought some solid dudes, and it's not like all he does is get just terrorized by him, right? But he's been around for a while. I mean, that damn fight with Lopez, Juanma, was in 2008. That's crazy. I kind of forgot that was in 2008. I thought it was a little up there, but I think he's gonna keep this going. Could it be a TKO? Maybe, but I think he'll win the fight, and I think he'll win it pretty cleanly. I'd say like a 9-3. Somewhere in there. Maybe 10-2, maybe 8-4. I don't know. I think that he'll win the fight though. For 135, he's a big dude. If Herring comes in there and really tries to use all his skills, I mean, he has like a 5-inch reach on Acuedo, so he should be able to get the victory here. He really should. So I think. Obviously, it's not like it's a super tough fight for him. But, hey, this is a good fight, decent fight. It was made during, the bubble. It's going to be in the bubble again, of course. But, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. What the hell am I thinking about? Where is that? Okay. Sorry about that. I keep getting these damn messages. All right. So anyway, so I got that by, I think that he'll win that fight. Now the Fox, is that on a Sunday? I can't believe it's. speaking of ratings, to go 4 out of 5, like, that's another thing about only ripping the Fox ratings or whatever, that they aren't good ratings. I definitely am not saying that. But, you know, like, to go 4 out of 5, is it 4 out of 5 straight weekends on? Yeah. I was really surprised that for Fox in August and then early September, of course, now. But to have 4 out of 5, that kind of surprised me. But, you know, because they don't even put, in August, they barely put, they did this year a little bit, but they barely put in prime time based in August. It's usually like late May, June, and July. They actually don't put Fox baseball on in prime time in August, especially this year when you're going head-to-head with the NBA playoffs and even the NHL playoffs, which you can see they got hurt. You can see all these other shows, too. Like I said, I've been saying this ever since the ratings started coming out for ESPN, which were about half what they were normally. You know, the top 20 programs, most of them are news. So, you know, that plays into it. I'm just surprised. And then a Sunday night, because Sunday night's like the best. Sunday night, Monday night's like the best time for TV, television watching. Now, you know, obviously not as much in the summer, but I was pretty shocked that they did 4 out of 5. It's definitely not ideal. And then for this to be a Sunday night, I don't know, dude. It seems like, wow. I was surprised, like I said. But either way, I do like this Ugas fight with Ramos. And Ramos coming off that Perella fight. He actually lost to Jamal James and has won every fight since then. But it's not like they were super hard fights. He stayed busy for a while after that loss. Beat Francisco Santana. Beat a dude named Jimmy Williams, who I just don't recall. But Perella, who had been on a nice little run as well, he was losing that fight, ended up knocking him out in that last part of the fight. And there was some controversy there, but if you listen to the actual mic'd up sound, I didn't have a problem with that ending. He couldn't walk correctly. He didn't stop and walk back quick enough. He was hurt, dude. And when he actually got up, his legs were stumbling. You could see he couldn't actually keep his balance. He had to put his hands up. I didn't mind it. I know a lot of people were like, that screw, you know, he got fucked. But a lot of people are focused on the last part of the round. That's not what you're supposed to be focused on the ref. I know you go, well, I got to remember that. No, actually, you're supposed to. The rule is you can't be saved by the bell any longer. That's been a rule for a long, long time. Some people still are stuck in that. Oh, you can be saved by the bell, or even like the TKO rule, 3 TKOs and you're over, like it's Mike Tyson's Punch Out. That shit hasn't been that way for a long, long time. So anyway, Ramos had a close fight with Jamal James a while back, a couple springs ago. Pretty decent fight against Baranchik. He's been around. Prograis in that fight. He actually had a draw with Hooker back chunk like 5-6 years ago. The Wolf, you remember the Wolf? He had a draw with him too. I mean, I thought he won that fight, but Abel Ramos, we know what he's coming to do. We know what he's coming to do, and that's to put pressure on him. Now, hopefully, don't get me wrong, I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I'm not calling for, Ugas to get beat here. I'm not saying that. I think Ugas will win the fight. I think stylistically, Ramos coming into his, area helps. I think we're going to see a guy that is going to look sharp. I mean, I suppose that. Well, he did get a fight in February, didn't he? That's right, because he was waiting to see the results of the belt, because this is for the secondary WBA trinket or whatever. But I think it's going to put him into, pretty good territory after that. So, at some point anyway. So I don't look at this as some kind of great fight by any stretch, but I think stylistically, I could see it being more competitive than the Figueroa fight, actually. Ramos is a solid fighter. Like I said, he brings the heat. His last fight, his camp did talk about how he had, he wasn't feeling good. I think he said he had the flu or, we've seen plenty of fighters get sick the week of the fight. And that goes back to is it a real reason or excuse? Sometimes you don't know until the guy has another fight. Didn't Golovkin say the same thing against Derevchenko? Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it can be real. If you get sick in camp, it is hard to get rid of sickness. It's hard to get rid of being sick if you are sweating a lot. That's just how it goes. So we'll see. I do. It could be a late TKO. I don't think so. I think it'll be very close to what I called in the ESPN main event. 8-4, 9-3, maybe 9-3, 10-2. But I wouldn't be shocked if we get a nice little brawl here. Delorme gave some heat to Ugas. I think it's going to be a good fight. I like this fight. If you look at these Fox cards since they've been back, the last two have been showcase fights. Now, obviously, Delorme and James was a 50-50 fight. So 2 out of the 4 main events I'm cool with as far as, I like those fights. The other 2, not so much. Even though we can say they weren't complete and utter just destruction mismatches, like they knocked them out in 2 rounds, it still was a showcase. There's just no way around that. Anyway, so that there is I think, was it tonight or tomorrow? Is it, who is it? It's Brown and Boaz from the UK and Eubank and McDonough or something like that. That actually, I think that might be, I was looking at the odds. That might be the best fight there. But those 2 fights kind of stand out to me from the UK. I'm going to check them out. I don't have a lot to talk about them, just to be honest. But just from the UK brethren that I've seen online, them talking a little bit about, hey, keep an eye on this fight. This might be a good fight. So keep an eye on them shits, okay? Let's see. Actually, let me see if there's any. What the hell? Man. Oh, God. Sometimes, dude. It's funny because some people want me to, a very small amount want me to sit there and break down ratings and wait for ratings. But then it's for the Bacon British and Bowles Commonwealth junior weight title. So some secondary titles. McCroy and Ellison is another one. Tomorrow, if you got something, if you don't have much going on during the day, you may want to check out that one from England. There might be some hidden gems in there. Telemundo returns on Friday as well. Like I said, I'm wrong. That was ESPN Plus, not ESPN. Steven Nelson, DeAndre Ware might be of interest. Riviera and Rodriguez. Jared Anderson also returns to that heavyweight. So we'll see, where that takes us. But I'm getting these messages. Even though I talked about it minorly, I don't have all the information, but I talked about it minorly. I guess supposedly I was supposed to wait until the peak number came out so I could know everything about a rating that we already know is going to be bad. Considering. Oh, boy. Okay, so as far as news goes, Canelo, as we know, it's been a lot of drama you know, Oscar De La Hoya is online tweeting about, hey, this, that, and the other, everything else sucks. Go Boys the one. No, he didn't say that exactly, but he's talking about, I'm going to come back and save boxing, or we need real boxing on, you know, but look at his schedule, dog. But anyway, this is a good sign. Canelo is in discussions, and it feels like we've been saying that for a long time because we have. Callum Smith and Billy Joe Saunders are on the table for November. Now, how much are they going to give both Canelo and the fighters, or the fighter? As we know, it's $40 million a fight that Canelo gets for a Canelo event. I think, what was it, 35 or 33 or whatever the hell it was, goes to Canelo. Maybe he'll take a little pay cut. They were talking about the rumors out there, which were Dan Raphael and a bunch of folks. So and they didn't ever really get, you know, debated or appealed to. Like, oh no, that's not what's going on. There hasn't been a lot, you know, talk against it. So that tells me it's pretty close to true, if not true. They're talking about cutting. They were, I should say, talking about cutting Canelo's money in half, even so 17 or whatever million, even for Callum Smith, which is a quality opponent. So it's kind of crazy. You just wonder, did he go, all right, just give me 5 or 10 more million, and I'll make it work for this fight. And Golovkin will be next May, because that's what they say. They already got that money figured out. Or, you know, is it that they got to pay him in full, like the contract says? Maybe there was a clause in the contract, I think we talked about this, where it's like a natural disaster type clause where they can say, oh, well, we don't have to pay you this go round. I have no clue. But like I said, when they had to supersede, you know, Skipper, who is the skipper over there, John Skipper for DAZN, when they had to go to the billionaires' lawyers to try to discuss shit, who knows what the hell's going on. But it does seem like there's some discussions going on. Hopefully Billy Joe Saunders will be ready by November. I know he didn't want to take the fight because he was out of shape before. But he took the – I'm not saying he ducked the fight. I'm just saying it was kind of funny how all of a sudden he's like, well, I'm not going to take it now. But anyway, I would be happy with either guy. That's obvious, you know. I mean, just make the goddamn fight. And since you're so worried about ripping your own fighters, and I'm talking to Oscar and Gomez from Golden Boy, they like to rip their own fighters and then like to rip, you know, the PBC and others, but yet they can't get barely any fights done in their own shit. You know, Oscar was out there yelling at Eddie Hearn about closing the deal on Garcia and Campbell when it sounds like he never even made an offer. It's going to be on DAZN, by the way, here, I guess. Because there was some talks that it was U.S. or U.K. I'm pretty sure it's in here in November, and maybe it will be on the undercard. I don't know. But it's just funny because you're saying finish the fight. Well, you didn't even make an offer, and you have the A side in Ryan Garcia. So, once again, Oscar, you know, figure it out, dude. Maybe he's already taken too much punches in his comeback. I don't know. But anyway, I'm over here talking about Oscar, but look, he's coming back. So, obviously, he's delusional right now. Adrian Broner violated his probation, 7-day jail stint. It is what it is. I'm not surprised, nor should you be. I still don't think he can make 135. I think he actually can make 140, but we'll see. He had his mask on, so that was good. That was good. Nice work, Broner. But other than that, you know, it is what it is on this. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go too deep on this one because it's Adrian Broner and he's doing Adrian Broner things. Oh, by the way, somebody sent me a tweet, like a screenshot, or no, it was like it's actually a link. It's from Peter McDonough. So this is in Dublin, and he says, what really happened in Dublin that night in and out of the ring? You will hear for the first time the truth in my book. Oh, okay, it's a book thing. But there's a dude freaking hitting somebody over and over and over. For some reason, I just don't remember that. So I'm a little confused when it comes to that. But anyway, by the way, according to a Cleveland.com, a judge in Cleveland has sentenced. That was in Cleveland. That came back to that accusation of the assault in the nightclub back in 2018. And on last Wednesday, ruled on Wednesday that she had hoped the sentence would be a wake-up call. So, yeah. What else we got? We'll go over some more news and notes, and of course, got a couple of doozies, especially one boxing Twitter tweet that just like, oh, really? Okay. But it's not surprising. Because some people on Twitter, they just want the attention. So are they really saying it for they actually believe it? Or is it a combination, or they don't believe anything and they're just fucking doing it? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Oh, yeah, Kell Brook. What am I thinking? Kell Brook was offered $1.5 million to take on Terrence Crawford in the bubble. Okay? So it got people thinking and talking about, hey, like $1.5 million, didn't Eddie just talk about, didn't he just talk about how they both needed a lot of money for this fight? And didn't Terrence Crawford say, and Bob Arum say that he's not paying people below their minimum? Well, we know Crawford's minimum is at least double that. I mean, is it quadruple that? Is it 4.5 now? Is it 5 or 4? Is it 4? Is it 4.4? No, okay. But anyway, Coppinger and many other, Kell Brook has been offered $1.5 for a fight in November on an ESPN platform. Sources tell The Athletic Josecito Lopez was previously approached, but it's I guess he's fighting Maurice Hooker, which I like that Hooker Lopez on the Errol Spence and Garcia. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is it a real offer? Now you're not gonna. We talked about the Thurman offer, right? You're not gonna start, high and be like, here's $7 million. All right, I agree to $7 million. All right, let's go back to $5 million. Let's go back to $3 million. You're not going to do that, but 1.5. If they're not going to go back and forth, and it does sound like they're negotiating, because remember last week, like I said, Eddie said, I'm trying to basically pass it across the line, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be a pay-per-view. He was talking about it's good for UK TV. So I'm trying to come up with some extra funds, because if you look at their, in November is when they want to, Eddie, they obviously have the Joshua fight in December more than likely on pay-per-view. And then in November, they're trying to, according to Eddie Hearn, who would be organizing it, along with Sky Sports pay-per-view, obviously, and whatnot, they're trying to put that Povetkin and White rematch on pay-per-view in November, so they're probably not going to have, 2 November's pay-per-views. So it sounds like it's going to be here, ESPN platform. Well, it's not going to be on pay-per-view here either. So it just seems like 1.5, like if they only go up to 2 or something like that, it seems like a press run. Now, this could be just their starting point, and maybe they'll end up signing it. At this point, I hope, for Terrence Crawford's sake. I'm not a big fan of Brook trying to make 147 after over 3 years. He said he can't make the weight anymore. I'm not a huge fan of that. That's the only reason why I wouldn't call it just a big-ass really great fight because I'd have to see it in the ring or on the scale, I guess you could say. But I wouldn't rip it at all. I want this fight to happen. But, you know, if it falls through the negotiations and then he fights someone, you know, like Ray Robinson or like Teixeira or something like that, I don't know. It to me, then it would kind of be like a press run because Eddie already said Crawford needs a lot of money and Brook needs a lot of money. Well, 1.5, of course, relatively speaking, folks, is not a whole lot of money. It just isn't. You know, you can call me a snob or whatever. I'm not. I definitely don't have that kind of money. But you know, it just seems like okay. And once again, Top Rank hasn't gone against this. They haven't come out and said, "Oh, that offer is a low bullshit. We offer triple that," you know. But then again, he could be playing hardball. Let's start at 1.5. Let's go to 3. Okay, let's go to 2 or 5. You know what I mean? Who knows? My guess is they'd start at 5. You know what I mean? Because they're probably going to want as much as Crawford gets, and I'm assuming he gets his 4 or 5 million, whatever. You know, I think his minimum is 4 million. But anyway, 4 million something. So to me, we're going to find out. I don't think it's a bad question to say press run because he's already press one Pacquiao. We already knew that Saudi Arabia and Dubai weren't going to put money up for a big fight this second. And what I mean by this second, the last couple of months, that's been clear. And we know Pacquiao's side has come out more than once saying, dude, we're not in talks with Crawford. So for Bob, he's probably trying to do his job and salvage it. You know? Well, I tried with Pacquiao. I tried with Kell Brook. We can't make one of those big fights with Thurman or Porter or anything because, you know, the crowds, that's cool, I get it. So we got to fight Ray Robinson, or we got to fight this guy or that guy, whatever. That's what it seems like right now. I hope I'm wrong, though. Like I said, it seems like that. I'm not saying, oh, this is a 100% press run. Now, has he done plenty of press runs with Crawford? Yeah. Danny Garcia, after he lost to Porter, was a healthy press run. You know, he's calling his pops up instead of calling out, you know. So anyway, we'll see. But this is kind of crazy. And shouts out to the Boxing Voice, the hardest working show in the business. It has been for quite some time. Shouts out to Ness and Company. It's just one of those things where when you hear, you know, what folks had to say, I mean, this is what, and credit to Ness for saying, hey, we've been over this territory before, but listen to what Bomac, the manager of Crawford, has to say, because he has a lot to say about a lot of stuff. But here's what he said on TBV.
And Thurman is not even, Kell Brook is not even an option. I mean, that's a wounded duck. A wounded duck.
But Brian,
and Thurman just running his damn mouth.
You kind of been here before. Remember with Velasquez, you had said, you know, you guys didn't want Velasquez. You felt Ray Robinson beat him, but Top Rank kind of still made you fight him. And even now you're saying Thurman's a wounded, Kell Brook's a wounded duck, but it seems like Top Rank is still putting him on the table for you guys.
Well, that's what you know, what the writers put out there. But what me and Bud told Bob Arum is totally different. Which way that we want to go? It's totally different from trying to get fucking Kell Brook. The fuck. Like, I would rather fight Thurman if Pacquiao don't pan out, if they can't get this deal worked out the way we wanted to get it worked out. And I would rather fight, you know, Thurman. But Kell Brook is, man, he been had his face bashed in.
So there you go. That's Bomac a little while back on the Boxing Voice. So yeah, I'll just put that right there. I'll set that right there and let you do with what you want to do with it. Shouts out to the Boxing Voice, by the way, once again. Ness followed up on his ass, and, you know, I'm just saying, like, come on, dude. Everybody wants, you know, Bomac this, you know, he's got a lot to say. The quality trainer. But he was clowning Kell Brook, dude. Clowning him. And we've known that Kell Brook was one of the highest names on that list. I mean, that's fucking simple to see that. So, yeah. Take that for what it's worth. Whatever you want to do with that, you just take that. So anyway, moving on. And like I said, I'm not someone that's against this fight at all. Considering I think it's a good fight. I'd be excited for it. I think it's a good name. My problem is the weight. Kell Brook blamed some of the loss on Spence from the weight. Remember, he tried to challenge him not long after at 154. And I'm not saying he's lying. I know, you know for a fact. I mean, neither of them really looked good on the scale that day, if you remember that outdoor weigh-in. But, I mean, Kell Brook's a big 147-pounder. He was a big 174-pounder in 2017. So that's 3 years. That was in May, right? May 2017 is when Kell Brook and Spence fought outdoor, right? So, I mean, that's three and change, 3 years, and by the time they fight in November, it's almost 3.5 years. I mean, close enough. And it's not like he made the weight. It's not like he was doing catch weights at 150 or 149 or 151 or, you know, like you could say he was with what's-his-toes who we had the rematch at. I can't remember his damn name now. But anyway, that's the only thing I have a problem. That's the only thing where I'm like, I can't really call that some super fight just because of that. Because you're like, dude, that's all they've told us these last couple of years is 154, dude, it's on, you know. And now all of a sudden, he's got to now go back. And I understand, like, the rest I've heard people I've seen on Twitter, I've heard a couple of different podcasts and YouTube folks saying, well, he has, you know, he hasn't taken a beating, he's had some rest. And that's all fine and dandy, but when you're older and you go 3 years trying to not make a weight and you're having a tough time before that, I just, you know, it's the only thing, I mean, it's a different scenario, but it's kind of like Gervonta and Santa Cruz. If that fight was at 135, it wouldn't be that as appealing to me. It really wouldn't. I mean, would it make a huge difference? At the end of the day, maybe not for what's going to happen at 130. But the combination of Santa Cruz not having to go up to 135, where he just fought his first fight at 130, right? And then the combination part, the other part of the combination is Davis having to make 130, which we know is not a simple task for him. So then you go, okay, well then 130 doesn't seem like Santa Cruz's best weight class at all, right? I mean, maybe he has, you know, he loses this fight, has a fight, and then his body adapts to it. I don't know. But right now it doesn't seem like it's a great weight for him, right? Not like the other weights he had been at. Not like featherweight. But, you know, I'm just trying to say, hey, I'm not ripping the fight, but in the back of my head, it's hard not to think Kell Brook's going to be freaking drained making 147. That's the only thing. But we'll see. Like I said, I do, just based off Crawford, him needing big fights, in especially this time frame, you know, and I mean time frame, you know, of course, you know what I mean by that, during the stuff where there's no crowds and stuff, and we have a loaded fall and early winter schedule, but that also means you can only make so many more big fights, and none of them can be on pay-per-view, really. You know what I mean? So it's a little funky. It's a little funky. Okay. Let's see here. By the way, the WBC. WBA, check that at 154. The new rankings came out. And Madrimov is ranked number 1. Hurd is ranked number 2. Jillian Williams 3. Lubin 4. etc. Tim Tszyu is 11th. Fundora is 10th. Kell Brook is 7th. Goucher is 6th. Yada, yada, yada. But yeah, Madrimov is in line for a WBA. Wait, didn't he just win? Or no, that was a title eliminator for WBA. It's hard to figure something out. This is what I was talking about, and I'm not going to talk about ratings in a second. I'm going to put that on the back burner for a second, okay, folks? But the last week's show, this is something I think I've done 3 or 4 times for you guys now. Not like I've done it, but I've pointed this out about TV ratings right now. The last week, last 7 days, the 20 most watched TV shows, 19 of them, 19 out of the 20 were news. That's what they were. And the other one was ABC's airing of Black Panther on, was that Sunday night or last night? No, that was Sunday night. So, top 20, and I think it was like some sort of other popular show, the next week. Otherwise, they were all news. News is heavy. People are either, in case you didn't know, we have an election coming up. But also, the coronavirus, people want to keep track of what the hell is going on with it, whether it's local news, whether it's, world news, whether it's Fox News, CNN, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so, by the way, Frank Warren had something to say. This is from BoxingScene.com. WBC confirmed Fury will have a year once mandatory is decided. So he's got a year because, the Dillian White thing. Oh, Brodnicka and Meyer reached terms for the WBO title. So they avoided the purse bid. That's going to be, Michaela Meyer gets a chance to get a belt here, which is good. Oh, here's some more on this. This is a combination of boxing news and boxing Twitter here, but I got to put this out because this is a combination. Tony Bellew, who is non-biased, and I like Bellew. Don't get me wrong, but he's media now, so it's different. I definitely believe Dillian White will still become a heavyweight champion in the world. That's cool. 1,000 days he was waiting to challenge for the WBC. 800 of them. Wilder has been champion. He was facing taxi drivers instead of White. Now, do I have to remind you of the last 5 opponents? Let's be fair about that. I mean, dude went from Fury to Brazil. Oh, I'm sorry. Luis Ortiz, Brazil. Oh, no. God, I'm getting it all fucked up. Sorry. Ow. I was distracted by this cat, but now it just got me. Okay. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So you had Luis Ortiz, Fury, Brazil, Luis Ortiz, and Fury. That's the last 600 days, whatever you want to say. Right? It's over that. It's closer to 800. Whatever. But come on, dude. Like, I get it. We get it. But come on, dude. Like, at least, you know what I mean? Here's some other news, though. Dan Rafael, this is Boxing Scene. Joshua Pulev being penciled in for December 12th at the O2 Arena in London. Of course, June 20th is when the fight was supposed to take place out in that stadium, a 70,000 stadium, I think. This is Hearn. Yes, December 12th at the O2 is the plan for AJ, adding that he is hopeful that some fans will be permitted to attend the bout. So we'll see. Hearn said British authorities are aiming to allow 25% capacity at venues beginning October. And so I got that wrong. I thought he said beginning September. But maybe that was the testing protocol in September. I'm not totally sure, but 25% capacity. We are happy that the fight appears to be back on track and that we have a new date in a sight. That's what promoter for Pulev said, John Wirt of Epic Sports. There is still some tweaking to do on the contract, but we are optimistic it should be concluded. So that's a fight that's, on the schedule, whatever you want to say. Okay, here's a doozy. So, what the fuck, dude? The WBA. Look at this WBA shit. They got Sergio Martinez at number 6 at 168. WBA Super Champ Alvarez. Or no, this is middleweight, isn't it? Yeah, middleweight. Yeah, it's middleweight, my bad. Charlo, obviously, WBC, IBF Golovkin, WBO Andre, WBA Super Champ Alvarez, WBO World Champion Murata, the vacant. Oh, it sucks that the WBO Gold Champion is vacant, dog. Man, they gotta get that thing filled, dude. It's just not right. But yeah, Sergio Martinez returned, and although I loved him as a fighter, saw two of his fights live. I don't want him ranked 6th. I don't want him fighting anybody right now. But you're free to do what you want to do. But I'm not a big fan of it. Okay, this was funny, dude. This was funny. So there was a fake Frank Warren account out there, and this is what it said a couple days back. Was it 2 days ago or a day ago? I can't remember. After a long discussion earlier this evening with Shelley Finkel, Deontay Wilder has decided to withdraw from his contractual obligations to fight Tyson Fury this year. Which is not true, but some of the media popped off on it. Oh, my God. They were just so happy that was happening. It was funny, dude. It was funny. I mean, you had YouTube channels popping off. You had paid media, part-time media popping off. Oh, dude, that was good stuff, man. But it was a fake account. Now, who knows? Maybe he will. Maybe he'll change his mind. The thing is, people sometimes when this stuff will come up, they'll be like, where is he? Where is he? Well, you wanted his ass to go away so he'd stop making excuses before. So now he's supposed to come back. He already exercised the rematch clause. Why do we need to hear from him right now? Think about it. Like, I could care less. Right now, he's not fighting yet. Okay, here's Breadman Boxing, Stephen Edwards, trainer. Critics don't realize boxers evolve with age. They go from early 20s, I will fight anyone, to late 20s, boxing is a business. It's nothing wrong with that if you keep it in context. You guys just have to accept it. Ace-siders like Ali and Oscar are rare. That's a good point. That's a very good point. Povetkin, this is Twitter, Povetkin would have beaten Wilder long ago if Povetkin would have KO'd Otto Wallin. There's levels to this game. Povetkin, the family Fury executioner, is coming for you. Well, why did he take, PEDs? And I know people are going to say, oh, but it was a trace amount. Yeah, but then what happened the very next fight? He got popped on a PED. So, yeah, go someplace with that, please. Gervonta Davis on the Last Stand podcast. This is him talking about Gervonta talking about Lomachenko. If we get past our guys that we got ahead of us, then we can make it rock. I think it's probably time. Definitely not this year, which obviously makes sense. If not next year, then 2020. I believe at the beginning of 2020, we can definitely make it happen. Well, just do it next. But, they have plans, because remember they had the Ryan Garcia plans, whether they're right or not, I have no clue. But it still sounds like they're trying to, steer him. Now, Santa Cruz is a good fight. If he fought Garcia, that would be a good fight. I'd be happy. But it does seem like they're just steering clear of Lomachenko for now. Now, he's got a tough fight coming up. Didn't think about it until Boxing Source 2 said the winner of Taylor Ramirez 140 undisputed run would be better than Crawford's 40 run. Doesn't mean they're better. Doesn't mean they're a better fighter, just a better run. Yeah, except who has Prograis beat of note? Indongo? Couple of decent fighters. I'm not saying he hasn't beat. Did he beat Baranchik? Was that him? He has some good wins. But I'm saying a lot of these fights are tight. So you could say, well, I think Taylor, Postol, even though look what he did to Postol, that's kind of my point. Prograis, Taylor, Ramirez, all that mixture. Obviously, those seem to be better names. I mean, Felix Diaz was a pretty good name, who had, lost a very tight fight that some people thought he beat Peterson to. My thing is Crawford separated himself. That's where it's like, I don't know about that. Crawford separated himself. But I do understand that's why. That's why it was kind of cool that way. Well, not cool for Crawford, but when he left, it was an interesting weight class again because, like I said that earlier, I'm not going to repeat myself. Okay. I did kind of repeat myself, though, didn't I? Oh, Terrence Crawford, Keith Thurman. This is from well over a week ago. Keith Thurman, you funny making it seem like you wanted a real fight with the king, knowing you wasn't going to get no damn 10 mil. Look, when you're ready for real, I'll be here to smash your ass. For the stupid people that would think I ducked you, y'all go fall off a cliff. Y'all stupid. He also was kind of protecting it. Everybody in the whole, world is anti-Top Rank. And that's why they're ripping Crawford for his opponents of late, or the possible opponents. Like, come on, guys. Let's just go. It's a fucking embarrassment that the sports star fans are flocking to baseball and basketball and golf and other things in the UFC. But he said baseball and UFC largely ignoring the greatest sport in the world. Dog, that happened pre-pandemic, dummy. Like years and years. Like, flocking to other sports, like when it went to HBO and when it was on pay-per-view 12 times a year. Is that what you're talking about? I've been working tirelessly day and night with our partners at DAZN to get Canelo fight done ASAP and get our sport back on track. Why don't you make more than just one good fight, dog? And how much did you have to do with making that Campbell fight with Garcia? Because if you hear Eddie, and this is Eddie here inside, we haven't heard Oscar, but Oscar usually comes out and says stuff, right? He said he didn't even make an offer. So, once again, tend to your own business. Come on, dude. Like, get your shit done. Don't worry about it. I've said it many times. This is Raging Babe on Twitter. I've said it many times, and she has. I've seen this before. Boxing was better when the mob ran it. I know that sounds crazy. And here's a response on Twitter. The game has always been a shambles when the mob ran. Boxing had fighters appearing to be happy to fight off sheer heroics and legacy, and there was no fighter rights, basically. I mean, not only that, but you had, even Jake LaMotta and these legendary fighters had to they admitted to taking a dive, or even some of them didn't admit it finally, like in front of a Senate committee or something like that, or a hearing. Some of them didn't admit it, but everything points to that, That's the most ridiculous thing. Not only that, but like the lightweight and welterweight and even a couple other divisions, but especially those two divisions, were completely ran by the mob. Like, people got threatened, things happened, and not only that, like, I'm talking about things like, things like kneecaps, if you know what I mean. But not just that, but literally outwardly fixing fights. So you think, and he said, well, it was smoother. Well, it was ran smoother because we got more fights. Well, in 1950, we got more fights in general. It was that baseball were the biggest sports in the country. To sit there and say it was better, it was better when give me a break, dude. And then, Al Heyman has the most control in the U.S. We know that. Most control and most exposure for his fighters. Biggest roster in the world. Top ranked DAZN. There are other people out there. Golden Boy, of course. BT Sports. I'm talking UK and obviously US. But to sit there and say it's ran better by the mob. So you want dudes to just take a dive? It was better off when they were taking a dive? And it just cracks me up because kind of like what the Breadman said, dude, people are busy stuck on one fight that's not happening. Oh, Lomachenko and Tank ain't happening, dog. Crawford and Spence ain't happening. Well, you know what? Tank and Santa Cruz isn't that bad of a fight. And who thinks Lomachenko and Teofimo's a bad fight? Like, the last couple of years, and this kind of goes on the anti-PBC rant a little bit, of course, but this goes for everybody. I've seen YouTubers that have been here for 10 years. In a year or two ago, they were talking about how boxing is just in shambles and all this. Dog, do you know how many unification fights we've had? Even lineal titles, just quality matchups, the amount, and I've said this over and over again, the amount of mid-level fights, crossroad fights that we've had on television in the last couple of years has been great for the sport. It's not all doom and gloom. Maybe it's just not one of your favorite fighters or your favorite promotional company or what. I don't know what it is, but this from 2015 to 2020, people act like it's been just shitty boxing. It's like, dude, do you realize what 2017, 18, and 19 were? They were really, really great years. And I'm not talking about the 20s and 30s. I'm not talking about the 80s. I'm not talking about the 90s heavyweight. I'm not talking about the 70s heavyweights. I'm not talking about that. But look at the last 10, 12 years. You know, like on HBO, it was hard to find a mid-level fight. And, there was a lot of great fights. I mean, we still have that, but people act like it's just funny. But no, it was not better when the mob ran it. It's just so silly. And that's where I don't know if she's kind of halfway kidding, because I don't think she is. I think she deleted it. I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter. She said that, like she tweeted it. She said that before. That's just ridiculous. So anyway. Here's a oldie but goodie boxing Twitter here. This is kind of funny. Coppinger back in the day. Because remember, we talked about Joe Smith Jr. and Fonfara. I think we had that conversation a while back. And this is just a classic PBC, this is horrible fight. Joe Smith Jr. is a club fighter with zero business in an NBC primetime main event. Waste of a fighter, or waste of a slot. Fonfara is a good fighter. And he's going to toy with him, basically. Well, we know how that went. And I remember saying, well, hold on. Maybe this isn't as big a mismatch as we thought. I understand people didn't know Joe Smith. I didn't know much about him either. It was hard to actually find a bunch, 5 or 6 fights. And it wasn't those small ones where the camera was at a weird angle. They weren't televised. I know he only had one loss, but he did break his jaw at 2 separate times in the fight. That's why he lost. So, I wasn't calling for an upset, but that was a funny tweet, because that's so, oh my God, that's so funny. Like, this is just a waste of slot, and then he just ices him. Okay, so I guess we're coming to the show. I'm actually getting more texts. I'm ducking. Okay. Actually, they're not all. Well, anyway, since I gave you some information on it last week, as far as ESPN and Fox and UFC and PBC boxing and all that, and I like to put everything in context instead of just looking at. I'm not saying they're good ratings by any stretch. I'm not saying that. I'm just putting them in context. I mean, when you have a 1.7 million lead-in compared to 365,000 people, which is what the soccer was for Fox last week, I'd say that's a difference. You know what I mean? I do think that's a difference. Now, last week, I didn't get to clean that up all the way, but the PBC audience peaked at 1.2. The main event really peaked at 1.14 as far as, like, how many people actually Because some of that peak rating is when the local news come on. Like I mentioned, a lead-in can help you, but also the 9 o'clock, or even, let's say, Sports Center coming on, and the fight's still going on. That gives you a little bump. Well, the actual peak boxing rating in the main event was 1.14. It was like 1.2 something for the peak at the news thing. But that was 19% better than the real UFC peak in the main event. Main event against main event, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's all. The whole point is, they had an NBA game that was 1.7. That was the highest peak of the broadcast, which that probably would have happened, more than likely anyway. Like I said, if it was boxing as well, you know what I mean? Now the overall rating would have been higher, but it is what it is. I just didn't have the peak number, so I didn't go into some detail. The main event last week was over 1 million and peaked at 1.225. Like I said, more than likely, with the news during the main event or whatever, but also, so on average, it dropped 75,000 people for the whole card. It was 810 for the whole card. So, and then this week it was 823. It was 823. My point is, I didn't know the peak number, and when you look at it, it's a 3-hour broadcast basically a lot of the times. So the overnight, a lot of people, it's so funny to watch people talk about the overnight like that's the final rating, when it doesn't even have the main event involved in it. My point is, look at this. So 2 weeks ago, 562 was the average for the first hour, coming off of the lead-in of 3-something. Under 4, let's put it. Then the second hour was 726. That makes an average of 642 for 2 hours. But it turned out to be 833 or whatever the fuck, 810. So that shows you that there was a peak in the main event, right? So this week, right now, I only have 713 first hour and 826, which is a 769 average. You see what I'm saying? Now, the third hour, I don't know the peak, but 832 was the average of the whole card. So there's your rating. Okay, there's your rating talks. I'm trying to put it in perspective. I can't sit there and tell you what the peak is. You know what I mean? But what I do is follow people that have been following ratings for a while, and I've learned it. The ratings thing only really came in with HBO and Showtime. And then once PBC came, then it was like ratings. So many people wanted to use ratings and all that. And that's cool. You have to, right? Here's a little bit more backup since you wanted me to do it so bad. By the way, 60 seconds left of the live stream. 646-381-4990 is the number to call if you want to keep listening to this last part of the show, of the segment. This boxing brawler is one of the guys. Couple different people, that I follow on this subject because they know more than me. Boxing is consumed differently than other sports. It builds differently. Also, the total audience, while not currency, is a meaningful metric. It measures exposure because he was talking about the total audience was 2.5 million, 25% better than the main of or the fight night for UFC. Now, ESPN I know has less elements. We already know that. But here's some more. Just a reminder: average audience is the number of viewers on average are watching any minute of the telecast. That's typical what you see. The total audience report is how many viewers watch 6 or more minutes of the telecast. So that's 2-3 rounds right there of the telecast. Well, at least 2 rounds, 6 minutes, right? You put all this stuff in perspective when you do it, and that's what I like to do. I like to put stuff in perspective. And by the way, he actually said this the other day, yesterday actually. The OOH, meaning right now not as much bars, but bars, restaurants that show, sports. Obviously sports on this OOH rating. Nielsen is going to add bars They got bars. And also, people watching on their phone in their, the different stuff. But he says it's a big day for sports because that measurement is going to be incorporated into the ratings now. Or at least added later or whatever. And I have seen, I think they had boxing at, the rating will go up 8 to 10% or something like that, 8%. Some other sports were a little lower, some were a little higher. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. You see the broadcast thing, like on Show Daily or whatever? I can't remember that. That's another place I get them. The ratings, just real quick on Twitter. You hit a link and they're there. Or sometimes they post them right in, the ratings. But that's why I saved it for last, so I wouldn't bore some people with this because it is kind of boring. But, they show the primetime top 4 channels, the free channels, right? And if you look at, 48 hours, usually gets, 4 or 5 million viewers. That was in the 2 million range. NASCAR had a huge night. They were going head up against NASCAR. That did 3 million. They were going head up against, basketball that was doing almost 2, 3, and, above, right around that time frame, or that number, 2 and 3 million. They were going head up against NBA basketball. Even that one from last week, the main event actually leveled up with second-round playoff hockey. And there's a reason why hockey doesn't really get played much on Saturday in prime time. If they play it on a Saturday or a Sunday, it's usually during the afternoon. Because Saturday night is not a great night for ratings. So, but boxing has just kind of stuck into that because we shrunk, the sport shrunk itself when it went to HBO and Showtime. And when it had 10 to 12 pay-per-views a year, it shrunk. That's what happened. So this isn't a big shocker. I mean, like I said, go look at the ratings, dude. A lot of stuff is down. I mean, I was surprised that they just wouldn't do reruns, and put them in here rather than stuff they've already paid for. I mean, 4 out of 5 weekends on Fox is surprising to me. And then the last one on a Sunday night, I wouldn't be surprised, I was surprised they did it, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the local markets play other stuff. We've actually seen that. I remember in San Diego they were playing something else. I think they were playing – actually, one time they went to local news. Was that San Diego? I want to say in Texas something else was on because I remember people tweeting about it. That's the only way I find out. But, like I said, August is not great ratings, especially when you're going against all this competition. That, some of it's normally not there. You're normally not going against LeBron James in a rating or, many of the other stars. So it is what it is. Like I said, I'm not, a lot of people think the overnight. A lot of people only, say the peak is bullshit. I don't know. Now so one more thing I'm going to address is, so similar people or the same exact people sometimes that are normally, complaining. And I think some of it has to do with last week, too. They're trying to gang up now even more because remember last week they complained I ducked the rating. And somebody called in randomly and didn't have much to say besides giving me a suggestion. But they're good. They're saying these people right now are telling me that I'm going to find a way to make the PBC card look good, even though that mismatch, was bullshit. Well, I mean, did you watch the fights, dude? Because going into a fight matters, but what happens in the ring matters too. Now, sometimes it could be a cut. Sometimes it could be the A side not taking something serious, an opponent serious, and it's more of a brawl. Sometimes we get, what looks to be a close fight on paper, and Hernandez comes in and pulls an upset. But if you don't think there was some good mid-level quality fights on, entertaining fights, I don't know what to tell you, dude. You obviously don't pay attention to betting odds. In fact, I screenshot this earlier because I anticipated this, that they'd find a way to rip me for saying something good about a Fox card when I've already ripped the main event, or at least been critical of them. But look at Martinez, Arcone was a draw in the ring going in. It was plus 170, minus 200. If you pay attention to boxing odds, that's a good fight on paper. Mendoza Lamagna, 135 plus, minus 155. That's a pick'em fight close to it. Angulo Truax, plus 130, minus 150. Pretty close fight. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I watched the fights. I gave credit where credit was due for both. Yes, we know by a long shot that the Ramirez Postol fight in the ring and, coming into the weekend was a better matchup. Now, I thought he was undervalued, Postol, and it turned that way out, in the ring. I even put a little money. Now, I backed it up, but I put a little money on 475. I'm seeing people say it closed at plus 675, plus 500, plus 400 in spots. So, okay, man, if you think that's finding a way to make the PBC, card look good, all right. Whatever, dude. You're obviously just a fanboy, and that's cool. No problem. I was a fanboy once when I was a child, too. Mike Tyson was his name. Anyway, I wasn't a fanboy of Sugar Ray Leonard just because, I had known so much about Hagler and Hearns and Duran and guys that he was either going to face or did, and so, and plus, he was out for like a chunk of years when I just started being a super fan of him. Then he was on the bench a little bit. But yeah, here it is, and this is from Rollins. Just to follow up again, guys, those 4 people or whatever it is, or 10 people, or the 70 people on Twitter that they're anti-PBC no matter what. Yeah, that MLS lead-in was 376. The soccer lead-in was 376 in the Rockets Thunder lead-in, which had, I don't know if you know it, but Harden, people know Harden Westbrook, 1.6 million viewers. Context, like Rollins said in his tweet, it's just context, dude. It's just context. It's no big freaking deal. Calm down a little bit. It's okay. It's all right. I think I'm going to close on that note. What do you think about that? I think I'm going to do that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and shut this puppy down. Hope everybody enjoys the week. Remember that UK boxing during the week. Maybe it'll pay off with some fire or something like that. Don't sleep on, some entertaining, somewhat competitive fights while they last, or whatever. Hearing Cueto and Ugas Ramos. Ramos comes to fight. Cueto, he doesn't have a lot of big wins, just like Ramos, but he's fought a lot of guys, and they usually have to work for it, which is better than a 2-round knockout, right? Anyway, I think that's about it. I'm going to get out of here. Like I said, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy everything. It's not a Memorial Day weekend this weekend, is it? I'm so lost on dates. I don't think it is. That's next weekend. No, it's this weekend. Enjoy the holiday weekend, man. I totally spaced that. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. Peace out.
Once you become the world champion, I believe that you feel you have the upper hand. So now, as you fight, let's say you fight 4 or 5 years of straight survival, the bullshit, the holdback, and when you become the world champion, you're like, you know what, I made it. Now I'm going to show you it's this. So I'm going to get every dollar worth of what I deserve. Why?